My name is Jessica. I've been married to my husband Adam for almost 10 years. I was feeling down because we had been struggling to have children. My husband always comforted me, saying,
"We can do many things together instead. Even without children, let's enjoy our time together."
We both loved traveling, so whenever we had time off, we would go to the beach. We enjoyed our married life despite not having children. I thought those happy days would last forever. Until that day. I work as an office clerk in a nursing home. On that day, like any other, I was working diligently since the morning. While working, I was thinking about what to have for dinner tonight. I remembered I had some potatoes and chicken left, so I decided to make roasted chicken. Just then, out of nowhere,
"Ms. Brown."
The manager suddenly called out to me loudly. I wondered what it could be. Did I make a mistake? Yes. I quickly responded, but I couldn't help but tense up. As I approached the manager's desk, the manager, in a panicked frenzy, rushed over to me instead.
"It is urgent. Your husband."
My husband? What about him?
"Your husband collapsed at work. Forget about work, so hurry to the hospital, dot."
I hurriedly jumped into my car and rushed to the hospital. My heart was pounding incessantly as I drove. We had talked normally that morning, and now. Please, let him be okay. Please. I cried as I drove. The hospital was only a 15-minute drive away, but it felt incredibly far. When I arrived at the hospital, I ran to the reception. Then, I was guided to the designated treatment room. "Adam!" I screamed, but my voice never reached my husband. It was already too late. The treatment room was eerily quiet, with only the sound of medical instruments echoing. As I looked at the faces of the doctors and nurses, I understood the situation. A doctor approached me.
"You're his wife, right? I'm sorry, but your husband."
I broke down into tears. It seemed he had suffered a heart attack. The doctor explained more, but I couldn't hear anything beyond that. I can never see my husband again, even though we promised to be together forever. He's such a liar. This must be a dream. He must be playing a prank on me. That's what I thought. Then, I collapsed. When I woke up, I was in a hospital room. My parents were there, watching over me with concern.
"Jessica, are you okay?"
My mother gently held my hand. "Why am I in the hospital?" "Oh, right. I heard that my husband collapsed." And then, my husband. Through the haze of consciousness, I remembered and began to cry. My mother, seeing me like this, hugged me tightly, tears welling up in her eyes. I cried out loud. I didn't know how long I cried. I just kept crying, realizing that I had to accept the reality. My deceased husband wouldn't come back anymore. If I didn't properly send him off, he would be sad. I bit down my lips and vowed to myself that I wouldn't cry any further. The arrangements for the funeral were made by my in-laws. My mother-in-law looked as worn out as I felt, and my father-in-law seemed to take charge of most of the arrangements.
God can be so cruel. To take him away so suddenly.
My friends, who came to pay their respects, said through tears,
"Jessica, you don't have to hold back your tears."
Some of them said that to me, but I only replied, "Thank you for your concern." Yet, deep down, I wanted to cry too. As a wife, I had to greet my husband's friends and coworkers. And I had to say my final goodbye to him. So, I had decided not to shed tears today, just for today. As I was greeting the guests, I noticed a woman I had never seen before. She was petite and very beautiful. I assumed she must be someone from my husband's workplace, so I approached her to greet her. Are you from my husband's workplace?
Yes, I am. I'm Adam's colleague.
I see. Thank you for coming today. Before I could finish my greeting, the woman interrupted.
I'm sorry for bringing this up so suddenly, but I'm pregnant with Adam's child. I'm 4 months pregnant now.
Huh? What? For a moment, I couldn't understand what she had just said. Seeing my stunned reaction, the woman chuckled and continued speaking.
Are you okay, ma'am? I'm carrying your husband's child. Do you understand that?
Yes, I see. I responded with confusion. I didn't know what to do, and my mind went blank. My father-in-law noticed my distress and intervened.
Are you from our son's workplace? Thank you for coming today.
Oh, are you Adam's father? Perfect. I'm pregnant with your son's child. That's why I came here today.
The woman spoke a bit louder, and her words began to draw attention from others around us. My father-in-law was also taken aback by her unexpected statement.
What on the earth are you saying in a place like this?
Some expressed their anger.
I'm saying it here because it's necessary. Adam's child is in my belly. That means I'll get a share of the inheritance, right?
Her unexpected statement left everyone speechless. It's still during the funeral. Naturally, it's not the appropriate time to discuss inheritance.
Hey, what are you saying? Stop it.
My husband's boss, hearing the commotion, tried to intervene.
That includes rights to this house, and the assets as well. The child in my belly has the right to inherit everything.
The woman continued her disturbing conversation. Despite being told to stop, even by her boss, she kept causing a scene, saying unbelievable things.
Adam and I loved each other. He always said he'd divorce someday and be with me. The child in my belly is proof of our love.
She shouted for everyone to hear. At that moment, my mother-in-law also noticed the commotion.
What's going on? What's happening?
The woman approached my mother-in-law while rubbing her belly.
The only grandchild that the useless wife over there couldn't make is right here. I'm sure you're happy about it. Please cherish them a lot.
She spoke with a smile. My mother-in-law was also taken aback and fell silent. Seeing that scene, I couldn't help but think. Surely, my in-laws must have wanted a grandchild. Upon hearing about the grandchild, I wondered if their feelings were swayed even just a little. But my father-in-law.
That's enough. This is a funeral. Think about the feelings of those around you. Get out of here right now.
He shouted angrily, visibly upset, with veins bulging on his forehead.
What are you saying?
Shaken by his outburst, the woman seemed bewildered. Did she think she would be accepted if she mentioned the grandchild? And then, she spoke out like this.
Why are you shouting at me? You don't need a useless wife who can't even give birth to a grandchild, right? I'm more suited to be your daughter-in-law. That's right. We don't need a wife like you. It's all your fault.
She tried to grab me, but people quickly intervened and restrained her.
Stop it. I'm pregnant. Let go of me. Don't touch me.
She protested loudly. At that moment, my mother-in-law began to speak to her.
Is it really my son's child? If so, then we'll have to divide the inheritance, won't we?
That's right. You get straight to the point.
Her eyes sparkled with excitement.
However, to inherit the inheritance, we'll need to have a DNA test, won't we? Since my son is no longer with us, there's no way to confirm it. But that's not a problem, is it? Because it's truly my son's child, right?
She asked with a smile.
There's no need for a DNA test. We truly loved each other.
She said while trembling.
You're shaking. Are you okay? Is something wrong?
My mother-in-law pressed on, looking at the woman with a cold gaze. The woman's face began to flush red. Then, my mother-in-law's expression changed, and she said decisively,
causing a scene during the funeral, claiming it's my son's child. If it turns out not to be, do you understand the consequences?
Confronted by my mother-in-law's stern words, the woman couldn't say anything and eventually burst into tears.
We truly loved each other.
Even while crying, she still continued to insist on that.
Enough is enough. This is disgraceful. My son wouldn't have loved someone like you. I know how much he loved his wife.
She held me around the shoulders and dismissed the woman.
I want to send off my son properly, so could you please leave right away? Could someone, perhaps her boss, escort her out?
My husband's boss forcibly escorted the woman out, allowing the funeral to proceed smoothly, and it ended without incident. And when the burial was over, it finally hit me that my husband was no longer here. All the emotions I had been holding back came flooding out, and I cried alone while looking at photos of my husband. Later on, my husband's boss came to our house to apologize again regarding the incident with that woman. According to him, she had one-sided feelings for my husband and relentlessly pursued him without worrying about anyone else. She would always try to sit next to him at social gatherings and made constant advances towards him. However, my husband never reciprocated her feelings. Despite warnings from his boss and others, she didn't seem to listen and they eventually gave up trying to reason with her.
I'm truly sorry for letting it escalate like that. We should have handled it better.
Then he apologized deeply. However, the one to blame was not the company but that woman. I told him that we were seeking damages for defamation against her. It was an unforgivable act to disrupt the final farewell with my husband. His boss empathized with my feelings, and afterward, we reminisced about my husband.
Adam always used to talk about you, you know. Even if he might not remember, when he got drunk, he'd always boast about his wonderful wife. You're truly a lucky woman to be so loved.
He said with tears welling up in his eyes. Oh no, I'm the lucky one to have such an amazing husband. He's too good for someone like me. I replied, my voice trembling. This is what I heard from my mother-in-law later on, but it seems that the woman was really pregnant. However, it appears that the child was not my husband's, of course. She confessed to sleeping with various people and deliberately trying to get pregnant. She admitted that, out of spite for not being acknowledged by my husband, She thought causing a commotion by claiming the child was my husband's would surely lead to divorce. She doesn't know who the real father is. Everything came to light at the company, and she lost her job. She's currently unemployed and facing a damages claim from me, but it's her own fault. After his boss left, my mother-in-law came to me and shared a story.
To be honest, there was only one time we mentioned wanting to see our grandchild. But Adam got angry at us.
Don't you ever tell Jessica about that. If you do, I'll cut off ties with you as my parents. Even if we can't have children, as long as Jessica is with me, I am happy.
That's what he said, and they apparently came to believe that as long as their son was happy, that was all that mattered. My mother-in-law continued her story.
At that moment, I believed that he truly loved you, Jessica.
Because of that, she could assert confidently that he had never cheated.
I truly love you too, Jessica. I think of you as my real daughter. So, you're still young, and I want you to remarry and be happy.
She said that to me, but I shook my head with a smile. I only have one husband. My mother-in-law burst into tears. I hugged her, and we both cried together. It's been several years since then, but I still think about my husband. I still wonder why he left me alone. There are times when I honestly feel like there's no meaning to living in a world without him. But I have to keep living. My husband, who was an only child, is no longer with us, and I'm sure my in-laws are feeling lonely. I wanted to repay my parents-in-law in place of my husband. Today is the 40th anniversary of their marriage. I decided to surprise them with a cake. I also gave them a trip as a present, hoping they would enjoy it together. My in-laws were very delighted. Then, I thanked them for giving birth to my husband.